Ja, så er vi nået til det, der egentlig står i aftenens program, og det er The African Experience. Og vi skal høre Clement Dachet, som er partnerkoordinator i Mission Afrika, blandt andre ting, også arbejder med migrantmenigheder for Folkekirkens migrantsamarbejde, og så er du næstformand i et tværkulturelt center. Så nu er ordet Clement, og når Clement har talt, så vil Enoch tage over her og byde Bienvenue velkommen, og Bienvenue og hans kor vil runde aftenen af for os. Tak.
Okay, we will just continue. Thank you so much. Jeg går det bare på engelsk. Let's. I want to use this time to talk a little bit about the question of being black, being African, outside of Africa. What is the experience like? When the black middle-aged American called George Floyd was murdered as a result of police brutality, it raised a global question on the issue of racism, the question of color. What is it like to be black, not just in America, but what is it like to be black in Europe? What is it like to be black in Denmark? And I think one of the reasons why it got a lot of attention is because we are all locked in our homes or places of work. The world has been very slow because of Corona, so we can easily pay attention to a particular thing and have a global response to it. The reason why I'm saying it is because several other acts of violence against people based on their color or their ethnicity have been going on for long, but we never had such a global attention to it as we had in the previous one. And people have asked me, being black, do you experience the same in Denmark? Have you experienced the same being out of your country? And so literally the question is almost asking me, do you experience Denmark as a racist country? Or have you also experienced that the Danish police is racist? And it's a very complicated question. Years ago, a Nigerian young writer by the name of Chimamanda gave a very inspiring talk, and it was titled, "The Danger of a Single Story." As a writer of stories, she knew how much important telling a story about a people or any person is. But she also believed that when a story is not told in all of its perspectives, it has a danger of misrepresenting a particular people group or an individual. And so even though I'm here speaking about the African experience, I am also aware that a lot of what I will be saying here would be one out of my experience and also a bit out of my reflections. So I am limited in terms of being able to speak on behalf of the entire people of Africa. That I don't have the ability to do. But I believe that some of the things I would say would resonate in so many areas as we speak. For me, the question of racism is like the question of every other forms of narrowing and reducing people to a form that they are really not. In my country, Nigeria, we have over 400 ethnic nationalities. So we have what we call ethnicism, which is where you look at a person and judge them by the particular ethnic group that they belong to. We have what is also called tribalism. That is where you judge somebody solely based on the tribe he or she belongs to. And I feel like, yes. Yeah, thank you. I will try. Yeah. And we can talk about so many isms, which means when you take a whole issue and centralize it on a particular element. And that is a danger when we do that. And what I have experienced in my time in Europe I wouldn't say it's a blown-out racism as I have seen practiced in other parts of the world. I have lived and traveled across Europe, been to several countries, and I've had different experiences. And it often depends largely on the general disposition that people have towards a particular group of people. So if I was in Italy, there are so many Nigerians that live in Italy, there are so many Africans there, and there's been a lot of issue with prostitution, like we have some in Copenhagen and other things like that. And so when I introduce myself as a Nigerian, people start to think of me, are you a drug dealer? Are you leading a prostitute group? You know, there is this idea that what people are exposed to become the elements by which they try to define people that look like people that are in that particular group. I was traveling once in 2007 to Denmark, sometime around October, and I took the train from Switzerland through Germany to come to Denmark. And on my way from Switzerland to the first city within the borders of Germany and Switzerland, the police came on the train, and in a whole wagon full of people, we were four people that were of colors. One was a Tamil family that were as black as I was, and here was I as an African sitting at the extreme end. The police stopped and requested for the passports of the Tamil family. I did not know that they were Tamilians until we went out of the train anyway, so I'm speaking now because of, in retrospect. And they came up to me and asked for my passport. And I have never seen my passport so scrutinized, checked every page. In the daytime, the police took out a flashlight to look at my picture and look at me and look at my picture. And I was wondering, why would you take a flashlight out in the daytime to look at my passport? There's enough light for you to know if it's me or not. And I was asked to get out of the train and taken to the police station along with many other people. Now, if you are in the southern part of Germany, around October, you know this is the big Oktoberfest, where a lot of people travel from all parts of the world to come and experience the big German beer festival. And here was I, together with a Tamil family, tugged in between two policemen, and we were dragging our suitcases. We were going to take another train to the police station. I have never felt sunk in and so unsure of what was going on like I felt that day. But it turned out that I was being profiled because I was black. That was my first experience of being taken and questioned based purely on the color of my skin. But have I experienced anything since then? No. That was my first close experience with what one will call a form of racial profiling. But in Denmark, I have never been stopped by any police based on the color of my skin. And I do not speak that on behalf of all the Africans. Each one have their own experiences. So when people ask me, have you experienced racism in Denmark? I said, no, I have not experienced racism. And I do not think that I have experienced the Danish people as racist people. Well, maybe because I'm married to one and I get accepted in. But what I say is that sometimes the policies of government, the opinions people have about foreigners can really be harsh, and the tone can appear very racist. And that is where the challenge oftentimes comes. I have lived in Denmark for 13 years. Believe it or not, I understand Danish and speak Danish, even though I'm speaking in English right now. I have never felt comfortable with the Danish immigration law, because in terms of its requirement, it's not all the time it makes sense. And as an African, I am often asking myself, if I was not an African, if I was a migrant from Germany or a migrant from America, would I be treated differently? For example, I am called a migrant with a capital letter M, while other migrants from European countries are called expats. I am called somebody who, an economic migrant who has come here to search for better life. You have nothing to get, you've only come to take. While others are treated as people who have come to give. They have something special they can contribute. It can be very difficult, and it can affect your identity in a very, very harsh way. Because I believe that when we move out of our own comfort zones, our cultures, our countries, we get to see ourselves in light of what others think and see us for. So I often see other people as a big mirror that kind of reflect what people think of who I am. I have never had to pay so much attention on myself, the country that I come from, my culture, than I have done since I left Nigeria, my country. Then I have to tell people what Nigeria is, what it's like to live in Nigeria, what it's like to come from Nigeria. So it can be tough. And these are some of the stories we hear when we meet in forums like this. We hear heart-wrenching stories of people who have lived here for 10 years, 15 years, and they're caught in the middle of nowhere. They don't know where to go. They're stuck. And the question is it because of where they come from? Is it because of the color of their skin? Is it because of the language they speak? And the reality is that for every Danish person who is involved in this kind of forum, they get to know the story, they get to understand what is going on. But for a regular Danish person, that is not what they wake up every day to have to think about. What is the situation with the migrants in Denmark? They don't think about that. So in a way, one is thankful for Danish people who are involved in forums like this because they not only get to hear the stories, but they become active voices to speak for justice for those who are being marginalized in the same society. And that is why I say that, yes, racism can be there, but it takes a careful looker to find it. Because everything can look perfect. I am thankful for the opportunities that I have living in this country. I had my master's degree here, all paid for, that I would never have in my country, fully aware of it. I have a job where I'm paid my dues, that I would never have in my own country. Those stories are beautiful, but I'm also painfully aware that there are many people who are not in my situation, who wake up every day and wondering, why am I here? I have spoken with quite a lot of people who are stuck, distressed in their spirit, lost a sense of identity and purpose because of their situation. And you ask the question, why is one being treated like this? I think racism or any form of discrimination, that is not God's design for our world. It is an indication of something rotten somewhere. And it is not only rotten, in Denmark. It is rotten all over the world. It is rotten in Africa, it is rotten in Europe, it is rotten in America, and that is the human condition. The Bible tells us that all of us have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. And any act of discrimination of anybody based on their race, based on their ethnicity or religion, is an expression of that brokenness in each one of us. When I think about the black race, the African race, it is one of the most abused race in the entire human history. When I think about the past, it is a race that was subjected to slavery. And I'm not blaming just the West for that, because there have been also what we call the trans-Saharan slave routes. There has also been the transatlantic slave routes. But Africans are also responsible for a form of slavery that is within Africa. If there is a market, there must be somebody producing the slaves. And like we say in Africa, if you point a finger to somebody, the remaining four are also pointing back at you. We need to look internally as Africans and ask ourselves, how are we treating each other? So there is something broken about others. And I think that our world is in search of a scapegoat because we know we're all guilty of it. Somewhere, somehow. We're all looking for a scapegoat. And so when somebody appears to be more upfront with their racism, we find a scapegoat and blame them for all of the racism in the world. And I think that racial justice requires attention from the church, requires attention from Christians who are working in politics that can raise their voice. I can never be a Dane. I can never be an ethnic Dane. I'm proud of being an African. But I'm human. You are human. And when we treat any one of ourselves less than what we are as humans, we take away their human dignity. And that breaks the heart of God. It breaks the heart of God. If there is one thing that we have, and no one has more or less of it than the other, is what is called the intrinsic value of being human. Doesn't matter the color. Doesn't matter what language you speak. Doesn't matter what religion or parts of the world you come from. That value of being human is what can never be taken from you. Because it is, you are created, the Bible says, in the image of God and in His likeness. I don't have a little more or less because I'm a man or from Africa. And you don't have less because you're a woman. You don't have less because you're a child. You don't have more because you're a father. We have that intrinsic value that was not given to us by any human and should not be taken away from us by any human or by any system or by any government. We can look back and shake our heads in utter disgust to the stories of slavery, to the stories of colonialism. But how will the future generation look at our time and judge us? Some of the things we allow, some of the things we do today, will they bow their heads in shame and say, what were they really thinking? So many Africans that I know in Denmark, we rarely live in big communities that is called the African community. We don't do that. And there's a stereotype about many Africans that say, if an African has a job, a good house, and can send money to his family in Africa, he's happy. He's peaceful. You will never see him on the street fighting or wanting to take over a land or take over anything. So sometimes the story of Africans don't get told because they happen in pockets of places, individuals suffering quietly and silently. But let us open our eyes and see what is happening around us. And that is why since I got involved in Twa Cultural Center, I've been so excited to be part of it because it brings out the stories of people out there, put it out there for people to read. Many who would normally not have a voice. Many whose story would never have been read by anyone. Because it's easy to put people in, Ulri's Center. And everywhere else it looks good in the society except that place. And no, nobody else goes there because it's not a zoo that takes tickets and everybody's going to go there during summer to see how people are doing. Let us kill racism and any form of discrimination. But we can only do it by the redemptive work of Christ. And I believe that we should speak for justice, but we should also call for racial redemption, racial reconciliation. And I'm not saying it just for a particular group of people, I'm saying it to myself as well. Because sometimes, if you have felt like a victim for years, you fail to see how wrong you can also be. The fact that you can also treat other people racially. I experienced that. I took a group of Danish people to Nigeria. And I experienced racism for the first time against the white people. I'm no kidding. I don't know what else I would have called that. But it's easy to talk about the power dynamics and say that was not racism. Well, they are justified because they've been treated bad in history. That's not the biblical way of looking at things. I should be responsible for my action in my own time and to the people whom I meet and treat. You should be responsible for your action in your own time and with the people that you meet and how you treat them. So let us continue to stand in solidarity with the people who have a brokenness. In Denmark here, we have a lot of people who have been brought from Africa who have been trafficked here, who are prostitutes. Sometimes we think it's their choice to do what they're doing. It's not their choice. They've been owned and controlled. If you can speak for them, speak for them. We have people who have experienced trauma sojourning up here to Denmark and to many European countries. Where we can help, let us make a difference. Let us avoid the danger of a single story. Let us meet each individual based on their story, and let us be willing to listen to their story. We might become richer and better. So I've tried to mix up my story and ended up being a preacher in the process. But this is a food for thought for us. Thank you.